Hi, my name's Kevin Hicks. Welcome to my YouTube channel, The History Squad. Now today's video is another one from the First World War, World War I. 23rd of August 1914, Battle of Mons. This is focusing on the extraordinary courage, bravery of Lieutenant Dease and also Fusilier Godley, who were both awarded the Victoria Cross for their brave action. As you can see, I've been busy making models again. So this model is important. I've actually been to this location a few times in Mons, where the 4th Royal Fusiliers made their stand on the Nimy railway bridge. So what I've done is I've stolen a railway bridge off my railway layout. Now, it's difficult when you're trying to make these models. You try and make them as accurate as possible. Some of the pictures I've seen, there was a double railway. Others I've seen, there was no railway. Well, on this one, you've got one railway. So it's just a model to show you. The canal here, the Mons Canal, 60 foot wide, 7 foot deep. In itself, not a major obstacle. And there were 18 bridges, 17 or 18 bridges around Mons, where the British Expeditionary Force is going to make their stand. Unfortunately, they're going to be exposed because it's a salient. It arcs around. So the British there are going to be under fire from 3 separate directions. And something I've found quite interesting when doing some more research, as I do, is the Germans didn't know we were there. 22nd of August 1914, they thought that the British Expeditionary Force were actually landing on the Channel coast. They didn't realise they were in Mons. What had happened is there'd been a forced march. Sir John French there pushing the BEF forward, the British Expeditionary Force forward. And they actually went across the canal into the woods. But they found that the dense woods on the opposite side were indefensible. So they came back and they started to dig their trenches. From what I understand, they only had time, some of them, to dig their trenches about 2 foot deep. So, you know, filling sandbags, doing all the things. These soldiers, this British Expeditionary Force, must have been exhausted. Now, you had the 4th Fusiliers, and next to them, you had the 4th Battalion, the Middlesex Regiment, the diehards were there too. Now, that makes 2,000 British soldiers on this little salient, but there's 6,000 German soldiers coming towards them, with extra divisions following close up. The problem the British had, their artillery was ineffective. Mons, the city, was in the way. You can't fire your cannons through the buildings. So the British, they're going to have problems. But what the Fusiliers did was they set up a defensive position on this bank, on the south bank. They dug in and they waited for the Germans to arrive. So the reason the British Expeditionary Force is right out on this salient, a real exposed position, and they're digging in there on the banks of the canal, trying to hold, for instance, the Nimy railway bridge, was that our general, Sir John French, had actually promised the French general, Charles Longrisac, with his 5th French Army, that the British would hold the line for at least 24 hours whilst the French retreated. Now, this will leave the British Expeditionary Force greatly exposed, but promises have been made and we've got to make a stand. So there's a full company of the 4th Fusiliers. Captain Ashburner commanded the company, but there's a machine gun section there, which is commanded by Lieutenant Dease. He's got 2 Maxim machine guns. I've actually got Vickers, I'm afraid. They're the only ones I could get. And they set them up on the railway bridge. And this is where it sometimes gets confusing when you're looking at these. Various films are shot and the machine gun's here or it's there, or there's one machine gun. But what I've found from my research, machine gun section 2. And the problem with these machine guns in those days was the way they drilled the men. Don't forget, this is brand new warfare. The men sat up behind the gun. They didn't crouch down. I mean, in the army, when I learned to fire the Jimpy, it was right down there. These guys, they sat there, so they're vulnerable. But they've set up, they've got their sandbags, they've got their ammunition, and now they're going to wait. So to add to the misery of the British Expeditionary Force, who were there on the Nimy Canal on the railway bridge, was overnight there was a thunderstorm and everybody's soaking wet, fed up and shimphing only like a British soldier can shimph. Just to let you know, this is the first battle the British will have fought in Europe since 1815, the Battle of Waterloo. Now our army stands to, they get ready at 4 o'clock, no bugles, quiet, word of mouth. They know the Germans are across the canal because there's been patrols have clashed. But now the British are waiting when two children turn up, only little ones, with a basket of bread rolls, croissant maybe, and some coffee. Sidney Godley, Fusilier Sidney Godley, he talks to them, has a bread roll and a drink of coffee with them. Just to let you know, a little thing here, private soldier, normal, you know, in the ranks you're private, but if you're in the Fusiliers, it's Fusilier. So when I say Fusilier, Sidney Godley, he's basically a private soldier, but a Fusilier. Don't get too confused. Well, the artillery starts to fire from the Germans' side, so the children are ushered out, and we are ready. The Germans advance onto the bridge, not knowing what's waiting for them. Round about 8 o'clock in the morning, 23rd of August, 1914. The Battle of Mons is about to begin. So, the Germans advance across the bridge, actually in column of route. They don't know what's waiting for them. And then the British open fire. And those in the lead of the German advance simply dropped to the floor. They were scythed down. The accurate rifle fire from the British there with their rapid fire and the two machine guns literally scythed right the way through this German army. One Fusilier commented, he says, you didn't have to aim. You just pointed your rifle and just kept shooting at the grey uniforms. And then he says, and it was horrible to see all of those young German soldiers down. The Germans retreated, regrouped. 30 minutes later, they attack again, but this time in open order. But the British soldiers there, they hold their own and they are mowing these Germans down. It must have been horrendous. But the Germans are understanding now what's going on. So they're getting their artillery to range in, and also their men are shooting from the opposite bank. So now the British are taking casualties, and very quickly they realise the two machine guns. That's the key to the British defence. Lieutenant Dease at this stage is shot through the knee. He won't go to the rear. He bandages his leg, or he gets a field dressing on his leg. This is absolute courage, isn't it? You know? And then there's reinforcements coming. Second Lieutenant Joseph Meade advances, but his troops are being cut to pieces. He gets shot in the head, but when he recovers, he carries on in the battle to be shot again in the head and killed. Ammunition is running short. Supplies are running short. The situation on this bridge is deadly. So Captain Bowden Smith, Lieutenant Everard Smith, bring up reinforcements with ammunition. Both of them are wounded within minutes. This is a desperate situation, but the British are digging in, holding their own. So what I've done with the model is trying to give you a machine gunner's eye view, their field of fire along that bridge, and also a view of the Germans. They've got to run into that machine gun fire. It must have been sheer hell. The only way the Germans are going to take out our machine gunners is with artillery, their own machine gunners, and the accurate rifle fire. But of course, you advance, the Brits are going to shoot you to pieces. This is quite an extraordinary fight. So things on the bridge are getting desperate, with the Germans using their machine guns, rifle fire, artillery. Casualties amongst the British are growing, officers and men. Captain Ashburner is wounded in the head. Lieutenant Dease is already wounded in the knee. He is dragging ammunition up to his two machine guns. He knows he's got to keep them firing. Then his left-hand gun is taken out of action. Artillery shells, shrapnel through the cooling jacket. He notices that the machine gunner on the right gun, the only gun still firing, has been wounded. So Lieutenant Dease, fully exposed to enemy fire, runs over to the gun, drags the wounded gunner out rolls him down the other side of the bank out of harm's way, possibly saving his life. He then gets in behind the gun. All the time, he's been wounded in the leg, hasn't he? Then he's wounded in the neck. One of his officers crawls over to him and says, "You've got to get out of here, you've got to get over here." But he will not go. He keeps that gun firing. By the way, the loader to that gun, Fusilier Godley. So this is now one gun, and it's really going somewhere. Lieutenant Dease is hit again, I understand, in the head, and then finally in the chest. He's pulled away from the gun, and Godley gets down behind it. But then, an incredible thing. Godley is told, "You've got to stay at the gun. We've got to get the men out." You understand what I'm saying? Can you imagine that? And he stays there behind that gun. So I've read, for 2 hours he mans that gun and keeps it rattling across that railway bridge. He's wounded several times. He gets a bullet in the head. And he carries fragments of that bullet with him for the rest of his life. And you know this guy? He destroys the machine gun. He then walks away. He ends up in hospital in Mons and he's captured, prisoner of war. It's not till 1915 that he finds out he's been awarded the Victoria Cross for his action at the bridge at Nimy. The German officers at the prisoner of war camp are so impressed by this, they hold a dinner for him. Wow. He lived a full life. He married after the war, became a school caretaker. What a guy. Lieutenant Dease, though, he died of his wounds. He's buried at Saint-Florian Cemetery in Mons. I've been there many times, and each time I bow my head at the grave of Lieutenant Dease VC. So before I actually wrap this all up, it was on a recent visit back to the UK when I went into the Tower of London. And of course, being an ex-soldier, I had to go into the Fusiliers Museum. That's my county regiment, the Fusiliers. And there was the citations for the Victoria Cross for Lieutenant Maurice Dease. And you feel quite humbled, you know, and putting the whole picture together, having visited his grave. And I'll go again. And then the story of Fusilier Godley, it's quite fantastic. So if ever you are in the Tower of London, there is this little museum in the far right-hand corner, the Fusiliers, the Royal Fusiliers. A great regiment, one of our old ones. And I'm very proud to have served alongside them in Northern Ireland in the 70s. So if you're at the Tower of London, pop in. But for now, if you enjoyed our little film, like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on the all notification buttons, because we've got so many different types of film coming down the line. I do hope you like me model. I worked hard on this. And now we got a special mention for some of our Patreons: Sandy Higgins, Peter Bush, and David Strother. Hey guys, thanks a million. Because of you, I'm able to do this. Thanks a million.